Good day to you. This is Greg Hunt, and this is No Disputing That, and this is an emergency episode. Yes, emergency. How dramatic. So this is following news this week that the Arbitration Act 2025 has received Royal Assent. I'm not alone in thinking this is the biggest shake-up to arbitration law in England and Wales since 1996, when the current act was given Royal Assent. And I just entered the world of arbitration myself, actually, as a case administrator at the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. I started in October 95, so not long after there was a new act to contend with. I remember that the new act was welcomed, but I do remember there was a lot of confusion at the time as the 96 Act kicked in, and cases under the old act were still being completed for quite some time afterwards. So anyway, this has been a long time coming. Arbitration does work well. It works well in the UK and internationally, but there have been gaps and things that weren't clear, stuff that wasn't efficient as it could be. And the new Act isn't a complete overhaul, but it does fix some key issues, making arbitration faster, clearer, and more in line with international best practices. Okay, so let's have a look at what's actually changing, remembering that the Act hasn't been actually put into power yet. It's not live. It's gained Royal Assent, but we don't have a date, I believe, yet for when the Act will be put into place. So big 5 key changes, I think, from having a read around and looking at things that will matter most. Number 1, sorting out governing law confusion. So one of the biggest headaches in arbitration has been figuring out what law applies to the arbitration agreement itself. You'd think it would be simple, but it's led to loads of litigation, especially after a case which is referred to as Enker v Chubb. So you can look at that yourself for more details of what that was all about. The new Act clears this up unless you've agreed otherwise. The governing law of the arbitration agreement will be the law of the seat. So this will cut down on pointless legal arguments and bring England and Wales in line with international best practice. Number 2, getting rid of hopeless claims. Right, for the first time, arbitrators will have a clear power to throw out claims or defences that have got no real prospect of success. Now, this is huge news for me and for Hunt ADR. Because it'll directly impact some of our schemes like travel arbitration and the private arbitration court, where we administer cases that often involve repeat claims and defences with little to no legal merit. So right now, if a weak claim or defence is brought forward, arbitrators still have to let it run through the process, even when it's obvious that it won't succeed, and that means unnecessary costs and delays for both parties. With the change that's coming, arbitrators will be able to step in early, cutting out baseless claims and defences before they drag everyone through a full arbitration. So that's much better. For claimants, this means respondents won't be able to waste the arbitrator's time with useless defences, and for respondents, it means they won't have to waste time and money defending cases that should never have been brought in the first place. For arbitrators overseeing travel arbitration, the private arbitration court, as well as arbitration cases in the wider world, this change will give them the authority they need to keep the process efficient, fair and focused on real disputes. So this is a huge step forward and will bring England and Wales in line with other top arbitration jurisdictions like Singapore and Hong Kong, where I believe similar powers already exist.
This episode is sponsored by Business AI Studio. Are you looking for a smarter way to create professional video content? With Business AI Studio, you can generate engaging, high-quality videos using AI avatars. Perfect for boosting your business presence, simplifying legal concepts, onboarding staff, or delivering training on demand. It's fast, cost-effective, and scalable for businesses of all sizes. Visit ai-avatars.io to learn more.
Number 3, stopping tactical reruns of jurisdiction challenges. So jurisdiction challenges have been a problem for years. Right now, if a party loses a jurisdiction argument in arbitration, they can go to court for a full rehearing, bringing new arguments and evidence, and this is going to change. So under the new Act, courts won't rehear the case from scratch unless the challenging party couldn't have raised their arguments earlier. So something stopped them being able to do that earlier on. This will stop parties dragging things out just to buy time, and it will keep arbitration moving. Number 4, protecting arbitrators from unfair liability, something arbitrators themselves will be very interested in. So arbitrators are going to have stronger immunity, especially if they resign. And right now, if an arbitrator steps down, even for a valid reason, they could still be dragged into legal costs. That puts pressure on them to stay in cases that they maybe shouldn't be handling. And I must say I have seen this myself firsthand over the 30 years almost now that I've worked in this sector, when an arbitrator really should have resigned but was scared to. So this is quite an important development, I think. So the new law fixes this problem, hence it being a good development, as long as the resignation is reasonable. Arbitrators won't be on the hook for any costs. The Act will also make it law that arbitrators have to disclose potential conflicts of interest. This has always been best practice, and surprises me that there are cases where arbitrators don't do this. But anyway, it'll soon be crystal clear in legislation that that's what an arbitrator must do. Number 5, recognising emergency arbitrators. So this one is overdue, I think. Emergency arbitrators who step in when a party needs urgent relief before the main tribunal's in place will now be formally recognised in English law. This means their orders will be enforceable, making emergency arbitration a more reliable tool for getting quick decisions. This will bring England and Wales in line with other leading arbitration jurisdictions again, where in some cases emergency arbitrators have been recognised for years. So I think they're probably the top 5. There are other important tweaks you should know about. So for example, stronger court powers over third parties. Courts will now be able to issue orders against third parties, making it easier to get evidence when needed. Faster arbitration challenges. The process for challenging arbitrators will be quicker and harder to abuse. Clarity on confidentiality. Arbitration has always been confidential, but the old Act didn't actually say that. But now it will be officially written into law, into the Act. And I just know, again, through my experience of administrating arbitration cases over the year, I actually think this is a really important development. People quite often get hooked up on confidentiality, as they should, because it's one of the leading advantages of going to arbitration, but it wasn't actually written in the Act. It was just something that we always sort of knew was there but wasn't actually said. So this will make a huge difference, I think. What's still missing? As I said earlier, the Act makes some solid improvements. It's got some things it doesn't quite cover. So appeals on point of law. Under Section 69, parties can challenge an arbitral award on a point of law, but it's really limited. Some people have said the Act should have gone further in clarifying or expanding appeal rights. Excuse me. Others argue that arbitration's meant to be final and binding, so appeals should stay rare. I think I'm in that category myself. You agree to go to arbitration. The bar for appeal should be as high as it's possible to be, while still being sort of fair, I suppose. Because you've elected to go into that process, you've elected to live with the decision of the arbitrator, and I think that appeals should be rare and not something that's just seen as an everyday occurrence. I think once you start watering down the options, reasons why you should go to appeal, you'll be flooded with appeals, and arbitration itself will be less worthwhile. I think keeping the appeal bar as high as possible is a good idea. Some issues in relation to diversity in arbitrator appointments. The Act won't touch on diversity, which is a growing conversation in the industry. In other jurisdictions, they have introduced initiatives to promote greater representation, and some people may think that in England and Wales we could have done more here to do that. Funding and cost allocation. The new Act won't address third-party funding or how costs should be allocated in arbitration. With costs going up, there's a growing interest in how arbitration can be made more accessible, and maybe that's something for future reforms. There's a lot of press at the moment about third-party funding, and I'm not surprised it's not being covered in the new Act, but I think it's something certainly to keep an eye on as a subject of its own over the coming months and years. So, final thoughts. What does this mean for you? Well, it depends who you are. It depends what you do and what you're, whether you're a party or an arbitrator or a lawyer or someone representing parties in whatever capacity. I think that there are some good updates. It clears up grey areas, like the law governing arbitration agreements. I think it'll make arbitration more efficient, especially by allowing weak claims to be thrown out early. So, if you work in a field where you see high volumes of arbitration claims and you see high volumes of claims which are frivolous and vexatious, which currently go through and cost everybody time and money, when it's clear that they're frivolous and or vexatious, then the arbitrator will now have the power to deal with them at a much earlier stage, which will save a lot of aggravation for a lot of people. It protects arbitrators, reinforcing independence and transparency, and it brings us in line with international best practice. So if you're involved in arbitration, whether as a lawyer, arbitrator or business, you need to know these changes. Do you think reform's gone far enough? Let me know your thoughts. You can leave a voice note. You can comment on our LinkedIn page. No Disputing That has got its own LinkedIn page. And if you don't know, we've expanded No Disputing That recently. We're now available, not the podcast itself, but short videos covering a multitude. We've got 132 videos so far. And they are placed on most social media channels. They initially go on TikTok, and then they work their way onto YouTube and Instagram and LinkedIn and others. We've actually withdrawn from X, Twitter, because we don't believe that it fits with the narrative that we want. So Hunt ADR, No Disputing That, is now absent from Twitter. But you'll find No Disputing That on most of the platforms. As I say, the most up-to-date, where it goes first, is TikTok, and that's largely because we're trying to bring ADR to a younger audience, and that's where younger people tend to live. But we are available on other platforms as well. So let me know your thoughts, and bit of a ramble, bit of an emergency episode. Covered a few things off in there. I hope I've got it all right. If I haven't, apologies, but then that's what conversation's all about. You can correct me, and I'll be very glad to hear your corrections if there are any. Okay, I will see you soon. We've got some good episodes planned for the near future on various topics of interest in ADR. I've not done it for a while, so picking it up now that the weather is, well, it's pouring down at the moment, but the weather is supposed to be getting a bit better. And I will see you soon. Thank you.